Hey guys, and welcome back to a now for something a little bit different, episode 56. Guys, today we've got a special treat. We've got the gentleman from Caliber 9 from outer space, Joe, Rob, welcome. It's so nice to see you guys again.
Hi,
Glad you
John.
could make it.
Hey John, how you doing?
Hey, it's good to see you, buddy. Today we're going to be talking about a film from 1960. We're going to be tackling, this is the first film I've tackled by this gentleman, Billy Wilder, and we're going to be talking about The Apartment. So I'm pretty excited. This is one I probably saw for the first time a few months ago, and I
Mm.
was like, man, I got to really talk about this movie. It's not the kind of the film I would normally talk about in my show because I kind of tend to focus more on the stuff that's a little bit less seen. And,
Hmm.
and Billy Wilder, he's a pretty, I think, mainstream filmmaker. But he's got such a versatility to what he brings to the table as far as his filmography. I was like, screw the rules. I'm going to talk about it. I think he's one of those guys that's definitely worthy of a conversation.
Yeah,
Um,
definitely.
have you guys, is this your first time watching this one, or how familiar you are with the filmography of Mr. Wilder? Have you guys seen a ton of his stuff?
It was definitely my first time watching it. I've had this on my radar for so long. I think everyone
Yeah.
knows it's famous. Yeah, I never got around to watching it. I think actually I had tried to start watching it once, and then we bailed after 15 minutes, not because we didn't like it, but just because I can't
Yeah.
remember.
Yeah,
And then,
that happened with me with Double Indemnity. I tried to watch that a couple weeks ago, and it was at nighttime, and it was way too late, and I fell asleep within the first 10 minutes. Not because it was a bad movie; it's an
no.
amazing movie, but just
Oh
because
no,
I
you
felt,
go back to
yeah,
go back to that one. That is a corker. I love Double Indemnity.
yeah,
Um, but yeah, I hadn't seen this one, and it's got a hell of a reputation, it's up there really high. I think it's got something like 4.4 on Letterboxd, which is insanely high.
yeah,
Just one of
yeah.
those
No, it does.
everyone gives 5 stars to. So it's yeah, I was glad to
Yeah,
finally get to it. You gave me the impetus.
yeah. No, and there's a couple different releases. Arrow has a nice release, and then Kino just put out a nice 4K release. It's got like a couple commentaries and some extra stuff on there too, for our
Oh,
physical media lovers out there. I'm
oh,
sorry,
nice.
Joe. I apologize. I totally didn't mean to cut you off. You went to go talk, and I sniped you,
No,
not
that's all right.
intentionally.
I was
No.
just gonna. I'm a big fan of Billy Wilder, but again, I had never got round to watching this one.
Uh-huh.
It's got a reputation. I think it's one of his most lauded. I think, and that's up against some massive competition from not just Double
Yeah.
Identity, but Sunset Boulevard, Some Like It Hot, etc. So yeah, it was great to finally sit down and watch this one, and yeah, not what I was expecting, but I loved it.
Yeah, no, I'm glad. I'm really glad. Yeah, and me too. And what's interesting is like, we all have those filmmakers, I'm sure you guys do too, where it's like you've been meaning to like really do a deep dive in the filmography, and maybe you've seen one or two things. For him, that's me recently. I started diving into not the entire filmography, but like doing a deeper dive in some of the stuff I haven't seen before. And like I said, when I opened up, you're so in shock, and you shouldn't be, by the diversity in his filmography. Like
Hmm.
you look at a movie like this and you compare it to a movie like Double Indemnity or one of the more noir type movies, and he can really do it all.
Yeah,
He can really,
absolutely.
and he can do it well.
Hmm.
That's impressive because not many filmmakers, I feel like, usually I think with most filmmakers, I feel like they have their wheelhouse, what they're good at, and they stick with that. But he
Yeah,
really kind of gives us some variety. So I think that's pretty impressive.
yeah. I was trying to think of something that's always the same. It's always his films are always smart. His films are always
Yeah,
intelligent. I think that's a common one. One I saw for the first time fairly recently and I loved was Ace in the Hole, which I'd never seen before with
nice.
Kirk Douglas. Oh my God, that's a good film. Loved that one.
That's one that's on my list that I want to get to. That's
Yeah.
one that seems to have picked up its regard recently. I think it was fairly obscure. I don't think it did that well or
Yeah.
something for him when it came out and was a bit obscure, but now people are rediscovering, and I've heard a lot about it. I know lately.
Yeah. Yeah. I
Yeah,
think certainly it was talked about a lot when Kirk Douglas died as one of his best, which I'd agree with.
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah,
and that's a
actually,
tough one.
maybe, didn't he win an Oscar for it or something? Maybe he did. I don't know. But
Yeah.
but yeah.
Oh, I can remember.
So what have you guys had the opportunity to see anything good recently?
Oh
Ooh.
yeah, I have.
You've seen,
I
you've seen loads, Rob. You always see loads.
well, I've had 2 weeks off work and living in England. unlike Scotland, the weather's really bad. Oh no, hang on, it's the same, isn't
Is
it?
it bad? Is it bad there? Oh,
It's
I
not
don't.
too good in Jersey right now either, guys. Don't feel bad.
I don't know why. I mean, I guess most of the world, but I grew up in Australia where Christmas time it's summer and it's brilliant. But anyway.
Yeah.
But yeah, I caught up with a couple of Richard E. Grant films because on New Year's Day, my tradition is first movie, usually I'll stick it on just after midnight, it's got to be a comedy. So I don't actually watch that much in the way of comedy. I tend not to, which is weird because I love comedy. But
Mm.
yeah, so this year I fired up With Nell and I, which is I've seen it before, but
Mhm.
it's a film I didn't really like the first time I watched it for some. I can't even understand why I didn't like it now because I love it
I've
now.
had that happen many a time.
Yeah,
Sometimes that revisit just hits you it just hits you in a different way, you know?
yeah. So that was a lot of fun, although it was strangely. I was saying this to you, wasn't I, Joe? It's a bit depressing at the same time as being very funny. So
yeah, it is.
I'm
It's
not sure it was the best choice actually to kick off my new year, but anyway,
well,
maybe love. But
we've been trying to strong arm you into watching Hudson Hawk for the podcast. So another
Oh,
Richard E.
nice.
Grant classic.
You got to
Should have
go
gone
with
for that.
that one, man. That one does definitely has a lot of charm, and it definitely I think because of the charm, it does have an audience. I don't understand the hate for that one, you know. It's
Yeah.
because there
yeah,
is
you
some
just
hate for
reminded
that
me. You know
one.
what? One of my favorite performances of his is. This is a film I discovered last year.
Uh,
Spice World, the Spice Girls movie. He's in that
God,
movie.
oh yeah,
really?
nice,
Oh
nice.
yeah, that movie's
Oh,
good.
yeah. Is it
Very
though?
cool.
Yeah, it is. It's funny.
Very
Um,
so.
He's like, is it? Are you sure? Are you trying to set me up for sabotage?
come on, do it. Trust me, Spice World is. It's
Nice.
Spice World is directed by Bob Spears, who was a real legendary British television comedy director. So he
Oh, okay.
directed The Towers, and I think he did
Mm.
Young Ones, and that's like this guy is brilliant.
Nice.
Um, and it has that vibe to it. It's got very much a British TV comedy vibe, which is something that I love. So I think anyone who likes that sort of thing might be surprised, like I was with Spice World, because I can tell you I didn't go in as a Spice Girls fan, and I didn't really come out as a Spice Girls fan, but at least they've got a sense of humor about
But if
themselves.
you were entertained for your hour and a half or 2 hours,
Absolutely,
whatever it was,
I will stick up for that. I will recommend that to people. But yeah, the other film I watched with the Richard E. Grant link, this was a rewatch. This was for my wife's birthday
uh,
because she actually rarely got the choice of what to watch.
Mm.
She chose Gosford Park, which is a favorite of hers. Um,
Oh, that's a great film.
yeah,
very cool.
and I've seen that. I don't know how many times I've seen that. Many, many times. But yeah, it's
Mm.
fantastic. And we watched it with a couple of. We've got our we had a couple of our nephews here from Australia who had never seen it, and they really liked it
Mm.
as well. So yeah, it went down a treat. Good one.
Have we talked
Very
about
cool.
this before? How Robert Altman then has been messed around on two hit TV series that he basically started. Because
Oh, good. Yeah.
yeah, Downton Abbey was supposed to be a Gosford Park series originally and became a
Oh, okay.
massive hit. And the same with the
Wow.
MASH TV series, of course, was a much bigger hit than in the
Yeah.
film.
So it was
Famously,
literally going to be Gosford Park, the series, was it, before it became Downton
it
Abbey?
was. Yeah. Well, that's why you've got Maggie Smith basically playing the same character.
Well,
Yeah,
makes
she
sense.
is. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
No, that makes sense actually. It is very, very similar, and I knew they were both written by Julian Fellows.
Yeah.
But down and the first series of Downton Park has got that. It's got that sting that Gosford Park. It's like it's nasty. You know, it's got a bit of nastiness, and it's got the very sharp satire of the social class system. They
Mhm.
threw that out the window like a couple of series in. That just became a ridiculous fantasy. And like all the rich people were friends with all the servants. I was like, this would not happen in.
Yeah, I don't see that happening. Certainly not here in the States, that's for sure.
No, back then, they all knew their place. Everyone was happy. You know, that's very much the. I've not that I've seen Downton Abbey, but I'd imagine that's how it
Listen, guys,
went.
I worked at a hospital for 4 years, and they call it patient transport. So I'd bring the people up and down for tests. And the
Mm.
doctors, man, some of them were nice, but I'll tell you what, a lot of the doctors acted like their shit didn't stink. They like
Oh,
seriously, they had their nose up in the air. I was like, is this the aristocracy? I mean, what's going on here, guys?
Like
yeah.
Alec
So
Baldwin and Malice, thinking they're
yeah,
God.
Yeah, absolutely, man. So that kind of attitude sadly does exist.
Yeah, I
Certainly
wouldn't
over
want
here,
to
that's for
be
sure.
doctors because I've known some lovely doctors, but I tell you what, there's some stinkers
No,
out
yeah, you're right.
there. No, they are though. There's some arrogant bastards, isn't there?
Yeah. Those are some stuff that I'm gonna definitely look forward to, and it sounds like you've had the opportunity to watch some really good stuff. How about
Mm.
yourself, Joe? Did you watch anything good recently, or even
I'm
bad for
trying
that
to.
matter? We'll take whatever we can get.
I watched because my wife was watching them and she loved them. Was the first two Kingsman films again with
Mhm.
a weird sense of Britishness as well. And the
Yeah,
first one is actually pretty good, and
yeah,
I've
yeah.
got a
I
record for
like that.
liking Taron Egerton.
Yeah,
Second is a pretty stinky movie, to be honest.
yeah.
Okay.
It really went downhill. Yeah.
I was not expecting Elton John to be in that film and have more action than Channing Tatum. That was a surprise when I saw it. I mean, it's got
What action are you talking about here?
the what? Sorry,
What sort of action are you talking about here?
he does kung fu in it.
Oh, okay.
In the full. Oh, have you not seen Kingsman 2, The Golden Circle?
No, I haven't.
Oh,
No.
well, there you go. You've got that to watch as well. You can do a double bill with that and Argyle then.
No.
Oh, you might want to kill yourself after watching that.
Did anyone like Argyle? Did anyone like that movie?
I actually didn't mind Argyle. I thought it was
No,
better than
I'm
Kick-Ass.
exaggerating. I'm being a little melodramatic. It's not
That's the
horrible.
strongest recommendation I've ever heard.
Yeah, I thought it was all right. I got a lot of time for Bryce Dallas Howard, so I'll give her
Well, it's
that. And
understandable.
yeah, and the guy that's in it whose name I never remember.
Oh, and Sam Rockwell, such an amazing,
Sam
right?
Rockwell. Sam Rockwell. I
Sam
can never
Rockwell,
remember
such
his
an
name.
amazing actor. Love that
Yeah,
man.
I love
I
Sam
didn't
Rockwell.
think I saw worse. I'm sure last year. Can't think
Yeah.
off the top of my head what, but yeah.
Yeah. Well, that's some good entertaining. You know, like I said, like you said, that first Kingsman movie in itself is really good, and it's a shame with what's his name, Taron Egerton, because he's done some good stuff. Like he was in a good movie called, I think it's called Eddie the Eagle, which was based off a true story,
Yeah.
which
I
Oh,
haven't
is
seen that one, but I've heard it's good.
yeah, and he's done some other stuff that I haven't seen. The one, isn't he on the one that's on Netflix, the one that everybody's talking about?
Carry on. Yeah, we've
Yeah, I haven't
both
seen that
watched
one,
that.
but yeah,
it's
I've heard
rubbish.
mixed.
I quite liked it at the start, but it didn't really pay off for me.
Yeah,
Jason Bateman's good. I like Jason Bateman in it.
Yeah,
yeah.
definitely.
When it comes to comedy, that guy is just amazing, and he can
Oh,
do
Yeah, but
drama
he's
too.
good at serious too, Jason Bateman.
Yeah,
I
Well,
no,
saw.
even his comedy, he's one of the all-time greatest straight men. I think he does straight man comedy so well.
oh
He
yeah,
does.
absolutely.
Yeah,
What
yeah.
was the show that he was on that forever? That everybody loved. It was such a huge, funny
Arrested
show.
Development.
Yes, Arrested
Yeah.
Development. That fucking
Mhm.
I was cracked up every episode. The
Genius.
humor in that. Yeah, no,
Unbelievable.
absolutely.
Yeah, I love
The
that show.
writers on that show definitely should have multiple awards. I'm sure they probably do, but
Yeah.
Well,
yeah.
absolutely
for actors,
incredible.
didn't they? That was the thing. They sort of everyone. It was one of those cult things that had a very devoted following at the time, but not enough, so it just got axed right when they were.
Well, I don't know if you've. I tried to watch the last series they had of it, and it's pretty much unwatchable. It's
Yeah,
quite
it's terrible.
amazing.
That's what I mean. It came, but that was like 10, 15 years later or something. That was a long time after. And Netflix.
Yeah.
that- So is that where the one where they couldn't get everybody together at the same time, so they gave everybody kind of like their own separate episodes? I thought
Yeah, it didn't work, and it was all.
Yeah.
And apparently behind the scenes, they were all falling out. Jeffrey Tambor apparently was a terrible bully or something.
Yes, I heard that. Yeah, yeah.
Like
Wow.
allegations of emotional abuse and stuff like that. I don't know how much is behind. Obviously, he's not an easy guy.
Yeah, but still, wow.
But yeah, it all went wrong. But yeah, I agree. Series 4, not good.
Wow.
But 1 to
Wow,
3.
that's some drop off in quality. It's
Oh yeah. They shouldn't
interesting
have
to watch.
Yeah.
Well, I know to avoid that. I've seen all the original stuff, but I never went back and touched any of the newer stuff. So
But
The,
yeah,
the first series of the newer stuff has actually got some good stuff in it, but it's
Yeah.
Yeah, it
patchy.
does. Yeah.
yeah.
The series 3 is the one with Charlize Theron in it, and that's just great. Great stuff.
Oh,
Yeah.
there you go. Can never go wrong with Charlize Theron. I'll watch anything she's in.
Absolutely.
For many reasons.
She does a very bad English accent in it, but even that it's
Terrible.
yeah.
It works. Yeah, nice. So I got a chance to watch a couple things. I watched and I was on the fence about this because even though I'm a big Bob Dylan fan, I wasn't 100% sure, but I saw in theaters recently A Complete Unknown with
Oh, right, yeah.
Timothy Chalamet.
I'm interested to see this actually. I love a
Yeah,
bit.
what I like about it is it's not necessarily a biopic and more just like a snapshot, a look at a period of his life, which I thought was smart. Because
Yeah,
I think where a lot of the biopics fail is they try to encapsulate an entire life in a 2 hour
Yeah.
movie. And I
yeah.
just feel like you're always going to shortchange things. This chose
That's
not to
boring,
do
isn't it?
that. And everybody's great. Like Ed Norton is in it, playing Peter Seeger, and he has a small little role, or actually a
Nice.
supporting role. Ella Fanning's in it, playing a girlfriend. I love her. I think she's fantastic.
Hmm.
And there's a guy who I'm not familiar with. Maybe you guys know, Boyd Holbrook. He plays Johnny
Oh,
Cash, and
he
he's
was
Oh,
in
yeah, I know
Logan,
that
wasn't he?
name.
yeah. The name sounds familiar, but I'm like,
He was
man,
the,
he,
he was
he's
the bad guy in Logan, wasn't he? Wasn't he the guy coming after him?
that might be, maybe that's it. But he played Johnny Cash in the movie, and he was absolutely great. But yeah, no, this movie's it's definitely one to check out if you have the opportunity. Over here in the
Hmm.
States, they have like a thing with the local theater where you buy like a monthly pass, so you get to see like X amount of movies a month. So
Yeah.
that's for me, I
Ah,
end up
yeah.
going more often than I should. Sometimes I end up seeing a lot of shit, but every once in a while I
I
stumble
was the
upon
same when
something
I had
good.
the cinema, my cinema card that you can just go unlimited times. Yeah, you
Yeah,
go and see everything. It's great,
yeah,
but
Oh,
you
yeah,
get your money's
there's
worth,
something
especially
great
when
about
you're
that.
off work,
There's
you
something great
know?
about seeing the trash as well. That's everything that's
Yeah,
coming out.
yeah.
hmm.
No, absolutely. So I saw that. That's definitely worth a recommendation. Since we were talking about Billy Wilder, I went and saw they had it on the Criterion Channel, The Major and the Minor. It came out in
Oh, I don't know that one.
42. Yeah, it's 42. It's Billy Wilder. It has Ginger Rogers and Ray Millard, or Ray, no, Ray Milland,
Hey,
excuse
Milan,
me.
yeah.
Yeah. And it's basically this screwball comedy. Ginger Rogers plays this girl that's been living in New York. She's in her early 20s. She's fed up with everything. So she decides to move back home to Ohio. But when she goes to buy her train ticket, she realizes that she can't afford it. So she dresses herself up like a younger girl and gets a discount ticket. And from there, wacky things ensue. And she meets Ray Milland, and they end up kind of falling in love. And it's this charming little story, you know. It's not one
Hang
that's
on, but
being
he thinks
talked
she's a
about.
kid.
Yes, yes, yes. And then
Okay.
he finds out later on, you know. But it's
At what
actually a
point?
I know where you're going, and
Yeah.
it's right
You
after
don't
they
get
know.
away.
No, 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 no. This is
1942. That's an
1942, you
early one,
know?
isn't it? That's pretty
Yeah,
early.
yeah.
Didn't he
That
come
is, yeah.
over? He came over to he was German, right? And he came, didn't he come to this one of those guys who came to the States to get away from the Nazis?
Yeah,
But
yeah. I'm gonna go into the history a little bit later, when I talk about behind the scenes stuff. But yeah, so he originally wanted to be a lawyer and then got into journalism. Then he got into film over in Germany as a writer, and then, like you said, he kind of bailed once World War II happened.
Mm.
But I'm gonna go a little more into that a little bit. So yeah, I saw that. That was a cute movie. Um, this one,
If you haven't
unfortunately,
seen it, Lost Weekend is another fairly early Billy Wilder one with Ray Milland, and I think he won the Oscar for that. That's a good one. That's
oh,
yes.
not very funny.
That one's coming in the mail today, actually.
Great.
And I look forward to watching it because I'm thinking about in a couple months I might do a double feature. Might steal from your guys' idea here and do a double feature. Do have like that one and then balance it with like the man with the X-ray eyes. You know, do like a
Nice.
the
Nice.
really wacky, you know, sci-fi, and then the serious one. I'm debating. We'll see. I've never done
Oh,
a double
cool.
feature.
Ah, nice. Well,
Um,
Ray Milland's a good excuse to do one.
yeah, I
oh
love
yeah,
him, man. He's great.
Yeah.
He's a
Yeah.
very,
yeah,
Oh,
no.
very
great.
watchable actor. I could honestly just, yeah, I could definitely watch a double, triple feature with Ray Milland.
Yeah, he's one of those guys, and it's funny because his career is all over the place. When you look on like Internet
Oh,
Movie
yeah.
Database, he's done stuff like the Roger Corman stuff, but then he's done stuff like this with Billy Wilder, you know. So he really kind of has
Yeah.
that versatility, you know, which I think is
Yeah,
interesting.
he went right. He,
Definitely.
he directed Panic in Year Zero, which is like a post-apocalyptic story about a family that gets in their station wagon and goes off to
Wow.
the cave.
I didn't
Oh,
know he
I've
direct.
heard
I'd
of
heard
this,
of
but
that.
I've never seen it. Yeah,
Yeah,
nice.
yeah.
Wow.
Pretty good. It's not, I mean, it's kind of odd, but I kind of like it.
Well, hey, listen, I like Odd. There's nothing wrong with Odd.
Mm.
Um,
He was even in a
so
Jarlo, wasn't he? He was in the Jarlo that was filmed in Sydney,
Yeah,
Australia.
oh
the
yeah,
pajama girl case or something like that it's called.
oh
Pajama
yes, yes,
murder
yes.
case. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's
Okay,
in
very cool.
that.
So I had a chance to see a couple more. I'll just briefly touch over them. One was one our buddy Jose from Watch Skip Plus recommended. This is a coming of the age film. It's an independent film called Snack Shack. And it's basically these two friends. They grow up in this small town in the 90s. And they're basically like con artists. And they have this opportunity to place this bid on this local snack stand at this swimming pool. And they win the bid. And, it's about the kind of like the adventures they get into. First love, all the coming of age themes that you would come across. But then it also has a couple really heavy moments in it too. Kind of like reminiscent in the sense of like Stand By Me, where you have all these moments that are like typical coming of age, but then you have those really dark moments too. It's really, really good. It's by a guy named Adam Roheimer, and it's mostly unknowns, but like I said, you can find it on Prime. It's definitely worth checking out. So that's
Wow, and
Snack
it's
Shack.
brand new.
Yeah, it came out in
Yeah, 2024.
2024.
Wow,
So that's
cool.
decent.
Nice one.
Yeah, no, I think it's worth checking out. And then I didn't realize, maybe you guys have seen this one. It's not amazing, but it's pretty good. Jack Lemmon actually directed one movie, and I wasn't aware of this. It's called
Wow, no,
Coach.
I didn't.
Yeah,
Coach.
it came out in 1971, and it stars Walter Matthau, and he's probably like in his 40s at this point in his life, maybe his 50s, but he's playing like a 70-year-old guy, and
Yeah.
basically
But
he's
Walter
living.
Matthau had a tough paper round.
Yeah, no, he definitely did for sure. He's basically playing like this guy that's living with his son, and you could tell that his family loves him, but he's getting up there in age, and they kind of want to stick him in a retirement home. So he's like, "Fuck that," and he leaves. He literally leaves. He goes on a road trip, and he meets this teenager played by Deborah Winters, who's pregnant, and they kind of form this unlikely bond. And the story is basically about that. And surprisingly, it's not bad. I have to give Lemon credit as a director. He did a pretty good job. And I'm kind of also surprised in the same time that that was the only thing he actually directed. I was kind of hoping to see more from him.
And
Um,
he's not in it at all then.
no, he's not. He's just doing the directing. So yeah, it's
Wow.
not bad. I think you can find it on YouTube, I want to say. Yeah.
Looks really good. That's the description of the storyline. It looks exactly like something that Alexander Payne would make. It's like
Yeah.
Yeah.
about Mitt
Very
or
reminiscent, right?
Nebraska,
Yeah.
Mhm.
something like that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
no, it definitely has that vibe. So
Oh, nice.
all right, with all that said, I guess I will get into the back behind the scenes stuff here. So our man Billy Wilder started off wanting to be a lawyer. Um, he abandoned that career path, realized that wasn't for him, and he moved to work as a reporter for a Viennese newspaper. He moved to Berlin, and apparently this is like the biggest paper over there. That was it was a big deal, and he worked there up until 1929, and then he started writing for several German films as a screenwriter, and he did that up until 1933, and then once everything started to be this big thing where it's like, oh, this is not a good place to be in 1933 with World War II happening and the persecution of the Jewish people, he made a break for it. And he moved to Paris, if I'm not mistaken, yes. Um, and he stayed there and he worked there as a writer for quite a while. And then eventually he ended up immigrating to Hollywood. Now, this is where things get interesting. Who does his roommate end up being? But nobody other than Peter Lorre ends up being his roommate of all people.
Wow. Yeah.
Yeah, because of Peter Lorre, he was able to get his start in Hollywood, mainly starting as a screenwriter. He teamed up with a guy named Charles Brackett in 1938, and Charles Brackett and him did several films together, including Balls of Fire and Ninochka, which I know I
Ninochka.
mispronounced.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They did a couple of films for Ernst Lubitsch, didn't they?
Yeah, they
Yeah,
did.
yeah.
Mm.
And then Brackett would go on to producing films for him as well. He would go on to produce films like Five Grays to Caro and 43. We were just talking about The Lost Weekend and 45. He'd go on to produce that, and as well as stuff like Sunset Boulevard as well.
Yeah.
Some interesting trivia. He frequently cast people like Marilyn Monroe, William Holden, Jack Lemmon, and Fred MacMurray. Worked several times with him. And he worked with Lemon, believe it or not, in 7 movies, starting with The
Yeah.
Apartment in
Wow.
1960. So
That's the first one with Lemon, of course. Yeah. Did he do the
yeah,
front page as well? That was Billy Wilder, wasn't it?
I want to say yes, that is.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I think
yeah,
it
that might
was.
have been.
Again.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, Now I could go over his whole filmography, but if I go over his whole filmography, we'll be here all day. So I think I'll go over just a handful. I mean, Some Like It Hot, 1959, Irma La Douce in 1963, which is another
Hmm.
cute little comedy. He teams up with Shirley MacLaine in this one, so that's worth checking out.
Right.
What we were talking about, the fortune cookie. Uh, he did that. Front Page. He's won over 7 Academy Awards and has been nominated 21 times. He actually won the Academy Award for The Apartment. It won Best Picture, Best Director, and
Hmm.
Best Screenplay.
Wow.
Yeah.
Um, and believe it or not, again, to tie it back to The Lost Weekend, he actually won for Best Screenplay in '46 for that as well. So,
Hmm.
obviously, like I said, the guy's been in a ton of stuff. 7-Year Itch, Sabrina, Sunset Boulevard, just so many films. And
I
I think,
didn't realize Sabrina was his as well. I quite like Sabrina.
yeah,
Yeah.
sadly, I will admit to having only seen the horrible Harrison Ford one, so I haven't seen the original. I have to go back and see. I have to go back and follow that one up and check that out. Um, so this film was obviously written by Billy Wilder, but it was also written by a guy. And let's see if I can not screw up this name. I.A.L. Diamond.
Yes.
And he did stuff like Murder in the Blue Room in '44, Never Say Goodbye in 1946. Just bear with me. Monkey Business in '52. He worked on The Apartment. Some Like It Hot. Kiss
Hmm.
Me Stupid. The Fortune Cookie. Worked on a bunch of different things. So he was a co-writer that often collaborated with Mr. Wilder.
He wrote with Billy Wilder. He wrote Private Life of Sherlock Holmes. That's a good one. That's one of the sort of
Yeah,
more
yeah.
obscure ones. That's worth checking
Actually,
Yeah,
out.
wait a minute. Jack Lemmon, of course, he was in Some Like Hot as well, which was the year before this.
yeah. I want to say
59 now.
it was about. I don't have my thing on
Yeah,
me, but I'm pretty
59.
sure it was about the year before.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, so that covers our writers. When it comes to cinematography, we have a guy named Joseph Lachelle. Now, Joseph's worked on stuff like Crime of Passion in '56, The Long Hot Summer in '58, Irma La Douce, excuse me, in '63, The Fortune Cookie, Laura in 1944. He was in
Oh,
Marty in
nice.
1955. So he's another one with a really nice little resume on him.
Yeah, yeah. And it
When it
looks
comes
great, this film.
Oh yeah, they
Yeah.
really work. I mean, we'll get into a little more, but I really like the fact that when you think about this film, there's a handful of locations, but there's not a ton of locations, but they really make the locations that they have really work. And to
Yeah.
make something like an apartment, for example, work as a good location and really be like really hold your interest, I think is kind of difficult to do, and I think
Hmm.
they really do that. Same thing with
I
The
Yeah.
Office.
That's
You know,
right. But they're very big. There's a lot of very large. I don't know if they were filming in actual buildings or sets that they built, but
Mm.
like the office building, for instance, that would be a huge set if that's a set.
Oh
Yeah.
yeah, it has to be because they have the downstairs, they have the elevator, they have the upstairs, and absolutely for sure.
Mm.
Just finishing up real quick, I'll get into music. We have a guy named Adolphe Douche. He's done stuff like High Sierra, The Maltese Falcon, uh, The Matchmaker, Some Like It Hot, Valley of Giants, a bunch of other stuff like
Mm.
that. And yeah, I think that covers primarily our main behind the scenes people. When we get to our actors, we obviously have Jack Lemmon playing the lead of C.C. Baxter. Jack Lemmon, the guy's had a humongous career. I mean, ignorantly, I will say the first thing I was aware of him in was honestly the Grumpy Old Men movies.
Yeah.
I didn't, and then I went back and watched the Odd Couple. But you look at his resume, and it's like it just reads like out to sea. You got Glenn Glary, Glenn Ross.
Oh yeah.
He
Love
even
that.
pops up in JFK, in a
Yeah,
small
remember him in
role.
that. Yeah.
Yeah, Out of Towners. Like I said, The Fortune Cookie, Some Like It Hot, Bell Book and Candle, Three for the Show. I mean, the list goes on and on. And one I've repped for recently, because I saw it about a month or two ago, he was in the 12 Angry Men remake that they did for TV. And
Wow.
it, yeah,
Friedkin
and
one?
yeah, it's he did it in '97. They did a remake of 12 Angry Men, and it's got a banger cast, and it's by oh shit, what's that guy's? The guy that did the oh man, I'm having a brain fart, guys. The guy that directed
Friedkin.
what? Yes, William Friedkin. Thank you, thank you,
Yeah,
thank
we've
you.
discussed this before. That's right.
Yeah,
I knew it was
Yeah,
somebody you'd heard of.
I did a Friedkin deep dive last year, but I didn't watch this one. This one I still
yeah.
haven't seen.
If you buy the 12 Angry Men, the Kino 4K, this comes as a bonus
Oh, nice.
on a different disc. Yeah, so you get that 4K, and then you
Oh, I
get
love
this.
it. I love it when you get a whole movie as a special feature. That's brilliant.
Oh, absolutely. So we have next we have Shirley MacLaine. She's playing Fran Kubelik. She's the love interest in the movie.
Mm.
She's been in stuff like Trouble with Harry in 1955, Around the World in 80 Days, Ocean's 11 in 1960, Sweet Charity in 1969, Two Mules for Sister Sarah. Here's one for you. I don't know if you guys have seen this one with Peter Sellers, Being There. I recently discovered this
Oh,
one.
Yeah, it's a great film.
That is that's a fantastic film. Obviously, Terms of Endearment, but then she does stuff like this, Cannonball Run too. You know what I mean? You gotta love it. You know, it's just, love that you see all these classic movies and you're like, hold on, Cannonball Run too, which is still a fun movie. But you know, it's another one that I like with Nicolas Cage, Guarding Tess in '94.
Yeah, which she plays like what an ex-first lady or something like that. Is that right?
Yeah. She's like
Yeah.
this, like crazy. She wants everything, and of course, Nick Cage plays a super uptight, guard that's supposed to be taking care of her. It's a cute movie. I like it. And then recently, and I still haven't seen this show, and everyone tells me I need to see this show, but apparently she was in Only Murders in the Building. That
Oh,
Hulu show.
right. I think I've seen the first series, but there's a lot of
Yeah,
big folk in that. Yeah.
I've heard many good things about it, so
Okay.
I have to correct that. Next, playing the role of the boss is Fred McMurray playing Jeff E. Sheldrake, and he's playing a real
Yeah.
heel in this movie.
He's
And
great in
for
this.
me,
He's great in Double Indemnity as well. Such a great
oh,
actor.
absolutely, absolutely. And it's funny, that's another one. I think as a kid, we used to have like the repeats of the older shows. And I remember My Three Sons. That was my first introduction to Fred McMurray.
Right.
You know,
I
because
was reading
anytime
about him. He was one of Hollywood's richest men, apparently. He had a real reputation. Friends with
oh,
Bob Hope. He got into real estate early and played golf.
great.
oh, okay.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, he has a shit ton of credits, so I'm not surprised. You know what I mean? Maybe, but real estate, that's smart, man. People
Do you know what his
get
last
rich.
credit was?
Minded Professor, big one that I knew. So, like, when I
That's
first saw
right.
Dublin, I thought, this guy's playing some sort of tough character. That guy, like, he's just a
Yeah, he's
kindly
the
man,
flubber
isn't
guy,
he?
isn't he?
Or
Yeah,
the
flubber.
Shaggy Dog. Remember the Shaggy Dog?
That's it.
Yeah. Yeah, the same
His
thing I did
last
when I
credit is The Swarm.
Oh, yeah? Oh,
Yeah.
wow. Oh, shit.
I think he's one of the many people that die in a massive train crash in that film.
Oh, okay. Nice.
Unceremoniously dumped out of the movie like everyone else.
Yeah, I think the bees derail a train at that point.
Yeah, so he's been in a ton of stuff. I'm not going to go over his whole resume here, but Double Identity is like the serious stuff. One Night in Lisbon, The Men Without Names. Like I said, he's such a wide variety to see him do the serious stuff, but do the goofy stuff too. But you know what? Surprisingly, he's one of those actors that can do both and do both really well. So I give him credit. And then when we go into I'm gonna kind of skip over because the rest of the people are like small supporting roles. Maybe I'll mention Willard Waterman, or I like to call him Mr. Hand from Fast Times at Richmond High. He pops up in this. Yeah, I love that stupid movie. But obviously he's been. No, go ahead.
No, I was just saying, I just recognized him.
Yeah, I didn't recognize him at first, and then I was watching the movie and I'm like, hey, that's Mr. Hand.
Yeah.
Is he is he one of the horny bosses?
Yeah, he's one of the horny bosses. Yeah.
Got you.
Yeah, so he doesn't have a huge role, but he's one of the ones complaining about not getting enough access to poor CC Baxter's apartment. So yeah, that's like I said, I could go over every person in this movie, but I feel like we'll be here forever. I wanted to focus mainly on the main people here. Just give me 1 second, guys, here, and I'm gonna just do a brief synopsis. I'm going to cheat. I wrote this one down from online. Just a brief synopsis, and then I figure we'll talk about the film and what our thoughts are. If I can get my little notebook here to work, just bear with me for just a second here. So basically, the premise is a Manhattan insurance clerk tries to rise in his company by letting its executives use his apartment for trysts, but office politics and his own romantic hopes complicate matters. Now, that's a very, very vague way of describing the film, but it kind of establishes the general idea of the film. I mean, I guess very briefly, basically, we have Jack Lemmon playing the role of the nice guy, which he does very, very well. The role of C.C. Baxter, and he's just this working man that works extra hours, and he's putting all the extra time in. He's being a company man, but somehow along the line, he got roped into being used for his apartment, and everyone, or these 4 or 5 guys, uses his apartment for whatever they want to have flings and cheat on their wives.
Jack Lemmon is being used for sex in this film, and it's pretty clear that the message. Yeah, in the worst possible way.
So that's the basic idea. I mean, I'll just go right into what are your overall thoughts story wise, or is there anything in particular you want to talk about?
This is one of those films that comes with so much hype, and it's not really the sort of genre of film that I fall over myself trying to get to. I love a screwball comedy. I knew this wasn't really a screwball comedy, so I wasn't quite sure what to expect. And I sort of went through this film sort of thinking all the way through, well, this is a well-made film. This is fine. But was really enjoying it. And then in the last 10, 15 minutes, was like, oh, okay, this is really great.
Yeah.
But it's always weird when you watch something that's got so much hype behind it, and it's something that you haven't seen for whatever reason. There's always, I find, a bit of resistance in myself I've got to get over, or something that's got to prove itself to me. And I think this one did.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, I think what's interesting is, for me, I'll just briefly give my thoughts. It starts off, and it's stuff that we've already seen before. The nice guy finishing kind of last, kind of being used, pining for the girl that's probably a sweet girl, but it's being used by, like in this case, Fred MacMurray's character, the boss. And it starts off like that, but then I think what's interesting about this film is probably around the midway point, it kind of finds a real heart to the film. Because at a midway point, Shirley MacLaine is meeting up with Fred MacMurray, and they're going out for drinks, and they're going back to Jack Lemmon's apartment, C.C. Baxter, and they're celebrating Christmas, the Christmas Eve together. And basically what ends up happening is he gives her $100 in a Christmas card, which is a lot of money back then. Hell, it's a lot of money now. And he says, oh, I wasn't sure what to get you, but here, you'll figure it out. Effectively, something along those lines. He's very cold, and he's like, I gotta hurry back though. I gotta get back to my wife and kids. And you can see kind of like her heart break, because that, like, she's aware of this situation isn't good. She's kind of delusional in the sense that she thinks that he'll leave his wife, but I think she also kind of realizes that's not too likely. And then what ends up happening is she attempts to commit suicide so it gets a little bit dark here for a moment, and she swallows a whole bunch of pills, and our man C.C. Baxter, Jack Lemmon, comes home, and he finds her. And by the way, he had just met some drunk lush at this bar that's just about ready to bang him, and he gets rid of her because he has this huge love for Shirley MacLaine, and he goes through this whole process of trying to save her. He keeps her in his apartment for a couple of days. He nurses her back to health. He gets his neighbor, who's a doctor, who helps him, and you really kind of feel the apartment actually become not just a sex hotel that's effectively up to this point is being used as the quickie stop, the 1 hour, and I feel like you get to a point where it actually becomes a home, and you see them have these touching moments where they connect. They're playing gin rum, and they're having these moments, and you kind of see like an evolution, and you almost kind of feel like maybe at this point in the film they might actually end up together, and then what ends up happening is, of course, she goes to go back with Fred McMurray, and eventually she realizes just what a heel he is. She finally gets it
Mm.
through to her head when Fred McMurray tells her that CC Baxter, Mr. Lemon, just up and up quit. He's tired of being used. He's tired of being the guy that's, you know, being taken advantage of for his apartment. And he's just like, I'm done. And
Yeah.
she finds out about that, and they're celebrating New Year's Eve together, her and Fred McMurray's character, and she finally is like, that's enough. And we finally get this ending that we want, that we were all kind of hoping for, this culmination of these two people coming together, and really connecting. Because at the end of
Yeah.
the day, both these people are good people. It's just they were both kind of used, whether they allowed it to happen to themselves or not. They were just kind of both being used, and they're both good people. And when they're together, the chemistry is electric. Those two together are great. And
Yeah.
like I was speaking about that other movie a couple of years later, Irma La Douce. The chemistry in that movie with them is also fantastic. They're just really, really wonderful together. So I feel like the film really worked for me. I think what's interesting is the film gets credited as being like this romantic comedy, but I think part of the reason why it won so many awards, and I think the reason it had a lasting effect, at least on me, it really impacted me, was it also focuses on some things that aren't present right away, but then become present. And it
Mm.
focuses on themes of like alienation, themes of loneliness, um, themes of corrupt capitalism, and of course, sexuality,
Definitely.
So
Yeah. Yeah.
I feel like it has some deeper cuts. Um, so like I enjoy a good romantic comedy. I'm not gonna lie, it's not my wheelhouse, but I enjoy one. But I think it's those things that kind of, for me at least, that's what elevates the film.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. That's it. They're both are getting sexually exploited by
yeah,
the
literally.
system, by the
Yeah,
man, in
yeah, no,
particular, Fred
absolutely.
McMurray. I was remembering there at the start when he was in these apartments, not really a home, it is just I suppose a brothel. And there's a scene at
Yeah,
the beginning when he's sitting down to try and watch a film, and it keeps on getting interrupted by adverts.
yeah,
I
yeah,
think
yeah,
that is a little microcosm of basically capitalism pushing him out of what should be his home and what
Mm.
he's wanting to do. It's
yeah,
quite yeah, it's definitely a very political film. This.
yeah, yeah, and it kind of sneaks it in there, and at first, like I said, it's easy to I feel like it's easy to dismiss the film on first, just first watching it. At first, you're like, okay, I kind of see where this is going, and I get it, but I think there are those other aspects to it which I think makes it interesting, for me at least.
Well, there is a slight darkness all the way through it,
Yeah,
and it's one of those weird ones where the more you think about it, maybe the darker it gets. Now, the
Yeah.
reason I did try to watch this once and then bailed, I'm
mhm,
just remembering because I went to watch this with my wife because I thought this will be a film that she'll like. And the
yeah.
reason we didn't finish it is that she wasn't liking it because she just couldn't deal with how shitty everyone was. But
Well,
then
Yeah.
yeah, no, there
it
is
took
that.
her by surprise
Everyone.
with an old movie like this. She was like, "But these people are horrible. They're just
Yeah.
absolutely terrible."
I would say Jack Lemmon at the start isn't even a particularly nice guy.
Well, I've got there was a little clue in your synopsis, John. You
Yeah.
said he's doing this to get ahead in the company.
Oh, well, yeah,
Hmm.
no, there is a self-centered aspect.
There
Yeah.
is, but there is. I feel like this is like Billy Wilder's icebox moment, or whatever it is that Hitchcock used to
Yeah.
call it. Did you come away from this, even at the end, where she realizes what has happened and why she was in the apartment and what his apartment was being used for? And maybe you can help me with this, but then the sort of
Yeah.
the penny drops for her, and she's like, "Oh well, this is the guy for me," which I still don't quite get why that. It explains a lot, but
I
also
didn't realize that was a
does
mystery
it
to her.
put him in such a great light? I'm not sure it does. Why does that sort of convince her to fall in love with him? I don't know.
I
You
think
know,
she realizes they're both in the same position, that they were both getting used.
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
I would say that would be. I think if I were to nail it, I would think that's. I mean, listen, you're right. I don't think the Jack Lemmon's character is this Mr. Innocent. I do feel like he was an idiot. I think he's one of these people that went in, like, as they talk about it at first, it was one guy, he had to get changed, he had to go to a wedding, so he used the apartment, and then it just kind of became this thing that kind of spiraled. So I do think, as far as his character goes, I think once he realized, if I let people do this, yes, it's an inconvenience, but it's also elevating my career, because as they show throughout the movie, he's going up further and further up in the building. First he's
Yeah.
the lowly clerk, and then he moves up one rank, and then the next thing you know, he's the boss's
He gets an
assistant.
office,
Yeah,
and then he gets a paneled office. Yeah.
Yes, the paneled office. You got to have a paneled office. You've made it big when you have the paneled office.
Before he latches onto Fred McMurray, he's not really getting anywhere. These guys are just exploiting him. These middle managing dudes. They're not really doing anything for him. And in fact, it becomes a net negative for him, I think, which is more like, well, if you don't let us use your apartment, you're going to be disappointed by us, and we're going to pick on you, and we're going to make life hard for you. So it's a really bad situation. But I think Billy Wilder is fully aware of how compromised he is as a character. I think that's what makes it really interesting, is that, particularly when it gets into the part of the film where he's looking after Fran in the apartment and still very much working on behalf of Fred McMurray and sort of pushing him forward and say, well, think about, you don't want to go to a doctor, or you don't want to go to the police, or you don't want to call anyone on this because, how would that look? And, he's got a wife, and all that sort of stuff, which is, he's both a really nice guy and
no, you're right. There's a shitty
not
side.
All that admirable. I like that about the film. I think that's really interesting. And yeah, you can see how they end up. Like, you really want them to end up together. Like the bit at the end, I was really feeling it. It's like, you want them to get together, but I was left afterwards going, yeah, I still haven't figured out in my head how I feel about the people in this, and particularly CC Baxter, because it's complicated. It's very complicated.
Yeah. Well, so is Shirley MacLaine's character. She, after everything, wants to go back with Fred McMurray.
And she realizes that the guy left her at the apartment, knowing that she's not doing good. Even when Lemon calls, he's like, oh, well, yeah, well, I obviously can't get out of the house, So, you're definitely right about, Rob, you're both right. Rob, I like the point you made about everyone in this movie is really kind of shitty to some degree. And even our main leads are kind of shitty. Like, and as far as Lemon goes, there is that part of his personality that you're absolutely right, that makes him definitely a flawed character in a sense.
Yeah, but I'll clarify and say it's not that I think he's shitty in any way. I think he's human, and I think one of the points that Wilder is making here, the more I think about this, the better written it is, because part of what he's critiquing here is the whole capitalist employment situation. Like, it's a very, this American, you translate this out to anywhere in the Western world, really, about what you have to do to get ahead in life and the sort of pressure you're put under. And it's interesting. I mean, I've worked most of my life in a corporate environment, and it's both similar and totally different from this, in that I can't imagine anyone being this brazen about it anymore, but I guess there are companies out there like that. But you can imagine in the sort of the late 50s, it was very much, this is how it works, and we'll do it, we'll be totally nepotistic, and we'll favoritism for people that do us favors and all that sort of stuff. You could probably get away with a lot more, but this guy's under massive pressure in that he's going to effectively not going to be able to self-actualize or live a good life unless he plays this game, and this ridiculous game that he's forced into, which is kind of a no-win game for him until he sees this advantage, which he takes, and there's some collateral damage along the way, but you understand why he's doing it, even if you don't.
And he's, he is portrayed as a hardworking guy, as a good employee.
Yeah,
the
exactly.
kind of guy that should be getting the promotions.
Yeah,
he's
no, absolutely.
Promoted above his ability.
No,
for sure. No, I mean, I think it's definitely a movie that really explains, the human condition, as far as, because like I said, I think as human beings, we all have that, that yin to that yang, if you will. You know what I mean? I feel like we're all flawed in our own ways, and I think, I hate to say it, definitely in America, what you said about Western civilization, people do what they got to do, and sometimes it ain't pretty, and
exactly.
it definitely, there are some moments that are really really dark. There are some moments that really go there,
Well, can I speak about the bit where Jack Lemmon talks about his own suicide attempt?
Yeah.
Yeah, please do.
It's a
Please
really
do.
odd bit as well, and he's kind of.
I didn't know how to take that. So is he telling the truth or just making it up?
I took it he was telling the truth. Yeah, he says
Yeah.
he tried to kill himself because he was in love with his best friend's wife, and accidentally shot his leg. And he is saying it to cheer up um, Fran in a way,
Yeah.
make her feel better. But I believe it. I believe these are both
Take it
very
for it.
damaged people and
Yeah.
and quite vulnerable people in a way.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, I mean, you start the movie off, right? And we go back to the touch back in the beginning. In the beginning, he comes home, like you said, he's like soullessly watching the TV show and he's eating like his frozen TV dinner. You know what I mean? He
Yeah.
has a very, you could tell like he's not exactly, he's just kind of surviving through life. And you can tell he's already kind of like not in the best place. You know what I mean?
No, I mean he's genuinely pathetic in some ways. In a way, when
Yeah.
I mean that in the term of you feel sorry for the guy. Like there's a bit where he says he's flattered that his neighbors think that he's the kind of guy that could have lots of women in his apartment. So
Yeah.
he's flattered by that, and you're like, man, that's just sad. Poor guy.
Yeah.
That's the best you can hope for is that, well, you're getting the raw end of the deal here. You're getting none of the good side of being a womanizer, but all the hassle. Um, and you're happy with that just because people think you're a womanizer, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I mean it's definitely a powerful film. I definitely appreciated it. It was one of the ones that I saw when I started diving into his filmography that made me go, "Wow, I really need to see more." And then when I started seeing some of the other ones, like I said, like when I watched some of the ones that were completely different, like like the noir stuff or some of the other films
Mm.
in the filmography, I'm like, "Wow, this guy is one of those guys." Like you talk about musicians that can like do it all. He's one of those guys that can play the guitar, the piano, and and
Yeah.
everything in between, and
I think he's one of the all-time greats, and and it's quite amazing. I've watched this one before because I do like films I've watched so many times, Sunset Boulevard and Double Indemnity and Some Like It Hot as well.
yeah,
Just that, just some of the best movies I've ever seen. Billy
Yeah.
yeah,
Wilder,
no,
and you can do it all.
absolutely. So I guess at this point, I will ask you guys, if I'm going to take a page from your notebook. What's your make or break? Is there a movie? Is there a particular scene or a particular thing that really like, man, that was a thing that just blew me away?
Our magic moment.
Yeah, your magic moment. I'm gonna steal from you guys. You guys have a good podcast, so if you're gonna steal from the best, So
That's nice of you to say so. I think it's so. I'm going to point out one moment. I don't know if it's the best moment in the film, but it is the moment where I thought, man, this is just so intricate and well written. And it's the bit you mentioned where Fran goes back with Fred McMurray with his character.
Mm.
Actually, it's that whole section from where CC Baxter is rehearsing this speech he's going to give to Fred McMurray, saying, your worries are over. I'm going to take her off your hands. I realized I love her. You don't have to deal with her anymore. And he walks into the office and Fred McMurray says to him, your worries are over. I'm going to take her off your hands. And we, like Baxter, are going, hang on, why? And then he points to his bags all sitting in the apartment because, of course, this has been set up too very elegantly with his
yeah,
girlfriend, his receptionist, getting in touch with his wife, blowing the whole deal. And he's been chucked out. And just in this short passage, we see the presumption of this scumbag that he's only left because he's had to. He's immediately going, well, I'll shack up with her then. Couldn't care less. That's all fine. And the fact that she gets back with him, but she doesn't know the context because Jack Lemmon isn't going to tell her because he can't, because that's so all this stuff is hanging together like an intricate little jigsaw where if she knew that he'd only left because he got chucked out, she probably wouldn't have got back with him. But she thinks he's left her. She thinks he's come good on his promise, left his wife, and wants to be with her. So
Yes.
that's tragic as well. And then you've got Jack Lemmon then, who could tell her that, who fully understands she's under this misapprehension. He loves
yeah,
her, but he's then got this paneled office and everything's going well, and he's got this amazing job, and it's such a conundrum that they've all got. So I just love where the script, how it constructs itself to
Yeah.
that fulcrum right near the end there.
The bit I liked is really close to the end actually, where Fred McMurray demands his key. He said, I'm going to need that key again. And Jack Nicholson
Yes,
prostitute
yes,
himself.
Yeah.
And he puts the key down, and you think, God, that's a bleak ending to this film. I like it, but it's a bleak ending.
Yeah.
But it's
It
not.
was-
It's the key to the executive bathroom as well. So you're
Yeah.
punching the air. It's the ending that you want. But yeah, it still took me by surprise. I was expecting then at that point a bleak ending, but very pleased they went down the route they should have.
Well, I did
Yeah.
that thing at the end of this. You talk about the ending you want when she's at the New Year's Eve party with Fred McMurray.
Yeah.
And I was flashing up how much time's left in the movie. I kind of forgot it was an old movie that doesn't have end credits. And I was like, hang on a minute. She doesn't have time to get back to the apartment and get back to
She's
Jack.
like, what the hell?
Yeah. You don't have 10 minutes of credits and a post-credit sequence.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
I'll tell you what else I liked, and this is just a very personal thing. I liked the gin rummy in it. I'm a real nerd for card games. They were actually playing the Oklahoma gin,
Oh, okay.
where spades counts doubles, and you draw a card at the start, and you have to get that's under the dead score. Really nice version of gin rummy. Rob, sorry, what? I didn't hear that.
I was watching that thinking, I can't remember how that game works. So I was trying to understand the rules as they were playing, but I couldn't remember.
Oh, it's a good game.
But you had it nailed down to the Oklahoma variant. Bloody hell.
Oh, I had to look it up because they were talking about spades counting double. I went, hang on, what does that mean? So I had to look that up. So it's just a little bit more intricate, but it is a really interesting variation of gin rummy.
Yeah, no, and for
What was
me,
yours, John? What was your make or break?
I don't know, man. I struggle because that ending is just killer. That ending, like you said, Rob. I honestly, I'm tied between that moment, but I also I like this. I like the scene in the apartment. I think I like the scene in the apartment where he comes back from the bar, where he's kind of downtrodden. He's got that girl with him, and he's like, I'm drunk. It's Christmas Eve. I'm about to get laid, and then all of a sudden he realizes the girl of his dreams is possibly dead in the next room over. And there's this, I just love that tender, like being the caregiver. I mean, yes, there's the dark side, like you pointed out, like, or he's covering for his boss and he's like, oh, he wishes he could be here. And, you know, but there's also that whole moment where he's playing gin rummy with her and they're connecting and you really feel like, okay, these two definitely deeply flawed people. But I feel like there's just the chemistry is just electric and that whole scene right there, I think works for me.
I think a lot of it is not necessarily protecting Fred McMurray's characters. It is also she's just trying to kill himself over this guy. So
and she does, he doesn't want to
upset her again. I think
get another bottle of pills, and the next thing you know, things go down.
Yeah, when he's hiding the razor blades and nervous about opening the window and all that sort of stuff. You know, it's sort of played for laughs. Yeah.
So I guess that wraps up the film for today. I appreciate you guys coming on. This was awesome. What do we got going on over at Caliber 9? Anything to look forward to in the upcoming week for our Caliber 9 fans?
We've had an absolute flurry of activity over the silly season, haven't we? Because we released our.
I know you guys have been banging them out, man. I'm impressed.
Yeah, we're slowing it down to normal pace now. We're not going to keep it up at that breakneck schedule, but we released a Christmas episode on Christmas Eve. We then did another one that Friday. Then we did our top 5 first-time watches of the year. On, I think New Year's Eve, we released that one, and we've just last week released our episode on what was it? Back to the Wall.
Back to the Wall and In the Cold of the Night. So a noir double bill.
Nice.
Yeah. So
I love that.
Sorry,
I love the episode on the Hidden Guys. That was awesome. I love that movie.
Thank you. Yeah, it's a great movie. Loved it.
Yeah, that was fun. And this Friday we're releasing another one. We've got a Fulci film called an early Fulci film called The Conspiracy of Torture, also known as Beatrice Cenci, which is a really interesting film. Period.
Yeah, fascinating
story. And that's paired up with Torture Dungeon, which is an Andy Milligan film. So yes, this is
not as historically accurate.
Andy Milligan was what would you call it? Was it Roughies? Were they the films he made? What would you call it?
kind of rough. He was definitely a guttural tour, I believe is a book about him is called.
Very,
Ultra
very,
low budget.
very low budget filmmaker from New York.
Oh, okay.
Late 60s, early 70s. So they're the two that we're doing this week.
Very cool. Well, I will anxiously look forward to the new episode. Like I said, you guys have spotted some stuff for me, some stuff that I haven't seen before. That's what I love about your show. You guys really gets a focus on a lot of films that I feel like really are kind of like the GGTMC. These gems that I feel like even the film aficionados like myself who pride themselves on having seen a lot of stuff, you guys really managed to dig up a lot of stuff that might be stuff that just isn't talked about as much or is lesser known. So it's a really great thing that you guys are doing over there.
Cheers.
So
Thanks, John.
no, of course, absolutely. With that said, I'm going to give a shout out to some other podcasts. Of course, Caliber 9 from Outer Space. Be sure to check these guys out. Check out my buddies Troy and Brad over at Not a Bomb podcast. Every week, they talk about films that either were a commercial failure or a critical failure, and they go back and reevaluate them. So definitely check out Not a Bomb with Troy and Brad. Watch Skip Plus with Jose. They're on a hiatus at the moment, but I believe Jose tells me that they'll be back probably the end of January. So look forward to new Watch Skip Plus episodes. Yeah. And then finally, Raiders of the Podcast. Raiders of the Podcast. They have a great format similar to you guys. They talk about 2 films, and every week they look at different films and determine which one is the victor. I think this week they talked about Anora and Megalopolis, and it was an interesting discussion. So definitely check out all those podcasts. You guys definitely need to hook up with Jose or Troy and Brad from Not a Bomb, because you guys I think would be, you guys would have some great conversations just like on here. Yeah, I think I know you listen to Jose's podcast, right, Rob? I think you're a Watch.
Yeah, I need to check out Not a Bomb actually, because I love that concept. Stuff that bombs. So much stuff that bombs is actually great.
Yeah, no, they're both really good podcasts. I know you had left comments and you had corresponded, I think, with Jose. So I thought, definitely both really good podcasts. So thank you guys again for coming on. This is wonderful. I look forward to it.
Really enjoyed watching this as well.
Oh, I'm so glad. I'm so glad you guys had a good time with it. You guys were kind enough to have me on in a couple weeks, so I can't wait for that episode.
Yeah, it'll be fun.
And I will bid everyone adieu. I hope everyone has a wonderful week. And thanks again.
All right.